Okay, we ready?
We're ready.
All right. Again, my name is Mike Walters. I'm the Vice President of Safety and Training for Superior Energy Systems, which is about 15 minutes from here in Columbia Station. I'm also the Director of Business Development, kind of serving a dual role. I've been in the propane business for 38 years. I serve on the Propane Education and Research Council's advisory committee since it was born, a number of NFPA technical committees, UL 495 Standards Technical Panel. I'm about to be appointed to NFPA 30A, which is the autogas dispenser, the dispenser code for all kinds of different dispensers. A number of other committees within PGA and so forth. I've been asked to come and give you a presentation on behalf of my good friend Michael Taylor, who is the Director of Autogas Business Development for PERC. And so here I am, mostly because he had conflicts and I'm about 15 minutes from here. Okay? Now, Propane Education, go ahead, next slide. The Propane Education and Research Council is located in Washington, D.C. It's a 503c nonprofit organization. It was instituted by Congress by way of the Propane Education and Research Act of 1996. That's a 21-person board of directors, 9 from the industry, 9 from the producer industry, and 3 public members who basically have a budget of about $45 million annually. That money is collected from every gallon of odorized propane that meets the end user in America. Okay? PERC is the technology incubator of projects to promote the clean and efficient use of propane gas nationwide. And the global leader in all these projects and in 3 mission areas. One is safety and training, another one is research and development, and the third one is consumer education. And there are a number of projects ongoing day by day to promote those mission areas. Next slide. So, propane autogas vehicle sales. I asked the question coming into this presentation, what happened to prior to 2015? And the answer I got was there was no real records kept. But it's expected that the propane autogas industry is going to grow exponentially over the next 5 or 6 years. In fact, there are roughly about 200,000 propane autogas vehicles in use today, and it's expected by 2020 to be an additional 100,000 on the road. I'd like to say we could get to 400,000 because piggybacking on what Bill Davis had to say is that we have the energy in North America right now to completely eliminate foreign oil. With horizontal drilling and the other methods of producing propane and natural gas, we can do it today. It's just a matter of whether or not we as a country, we as a culture, want to step up and make that happen. Propane used to be, years past, and I'm saying 5, 6 years ago, we produced about 70% of our propane. The rest of it had to be produced by imported crude oil. Propane today is a net export product in North America. We send more propane out of the country than we actually use. So what does that tell you? That tells you we have the ability to completely eliminate foreign oil and set our energy, our motor fuel, if you will, autogas security in motion for the foreseeable future. Next slide. The thing that I'd like to talk to you a minute about, and I'll pause right there and tell you, this presentation is Mike's. I didn't build this presentation. I'm kind of winging it. If you want to talk about propane gas, where it comes from, why we have it, how we move it, infrastructure, or the behavior of the product in the pipeline, in the autogas vehicle, in the tank, in the tubing, in the injectors, I'm your guy. It has been my lifelong goal in 38 years in the business to study this product and be able to talk to you about what its behavior is. Liquid, vapor, liquid and vapor, and so forth. So if you want to talk about the product itself, I'm your guy. If you want to talk about infrastructure, autogas dispensing stations, technology, nozzles, low emission transfer, no emission transfer, training programs related to autogas, the design and installation of autogas dispensing stations, I'm your guy. Okay, so that's where, so I'm going to give you Mike's stuff, but if you want to talk about infrastructure, I'm your guy. So what I'd like to talk to you about is total cost of ownership, and this is the key to the whole thing. Okay, natural gas might be a little less expensive. The cost to run it is a lot higher. Propane is the easiest, most portable, most user-friendly fuel of all of the hydrocarbon, and you correct me if I'm wrong, of the hydrocarbon fuels. Gasoline, diesel, the least expensive and the easiest to use, and I'm talking a balance there between easy to use and cost effective. But total cost of ownership has much more to talk about than that. It has to do with putting in the infrastructure. It has to do with the maintenance schedules. It has to do with all the things you have to do relative to that vehicle from purchase through its life, month to month, year to year. Okay? So I urge you to take a look at maintenance schedules, replacement schedules, what it costs to run your dispensing station, the electricity to run the pumps. All those things, all coupled together, is referred to as total cost of ownership. Did I lie? I'm working on it. Next slide. Oh, so back up, please. Mike likes to talk about the 3 F's of the life of the vehicle, and that is the fuel, the fluids, and the filters. How many of you got diesel vehicles in here? So you know that where fuel, fluids, and filters are concerned, because of regulation today, you've got a lot to do and a lot of cost because of it, because of fluid replacements, filter replacements, and then not only coupled to that, and what I'm talking about is total cost of ownership, right? Not only that, what are you going to do with that stuff after you've drained it out of the vehicle? It's not only just buying the fluids, it's what are you going to do with the stuff after the fact and the cost associated with that. Where with propane, you have none of that. It's all gone. Okay. Next slide, please. Energy price comparison. Now, people look at this slide and they say, well, okay, whatever. But the thing is, and the thing that you're not seeing on here, is between gasoline and diesel and propane. Propane is following the natural gas pricing structure these days, not the gasoline pricing structure like it did several years back. And so if you look at the comparison between gasoline, diesel, propane, and natural gas, you'll see propane and natural gas going flat, where gasoline and diesel, and I don't have to tell you this, you look at the sign when you pass the gas station every day, don't you? And you see this going on, right? One day it's $1.95 and the next day it's $2.30. How do you figure that out? So, and even on fleet contracts, it's all margin driven, right? So you've got this going on. So I urge you to pay attention to a comparison between what you're buying now, perhaps, and what propane can do for you. Next. Again, diesel engines require more fluids, increased PM schedules, more oil by volume, fuel conditioners, diesel emission. There was a event that Christina had a couple of years back where you had the director from Youngstown School District, and she was almost beside herself over the thought that she used to have people come in at 3 o'clock in the morning in the wintertime to fire up the buses because it took them 3 hours of running just to get it to the point where the atmosphere within the bus was inhabitable for the kids. She said, we cut all that out. With propane buses, we come in at 6:30, start them up, and within 20 minutes they're gone. And it's 70 degrees in the bus. Those are a lot of those total cost of ownership and total culture, if you will, where propane auto gas is concerned. Next slide. Again, like I just said, no block heaters, no fuel conditioners. They crank reliably. You don't have all that stuff you have to do in order to get a diesel engine running, especially up in these parts where it's 70 degrees in February. Next slide. Again, same subject, diesel particulate filters, change in filters. And I'd like to just say, what are you going to do with that stuff after you've changed it out? So you've got an environmental issue there. Right? Next slide. I think this is an important one, and that is nationwide families have where propane buses are running have made comments to the fact, 2 comments actually. One is you don't have the smell. You don't have to, your children aren't breathing that particulate matter that's coming out of that exhaust pipe. And the second one, and this was a complaint, we didn't know the bus was coming because it's a lot quieter. So they're complaining that they used to set their alarm clock by the fact that they could hear the bus coming, get the kids out there, and now they've missed the bus. Next slide. Mike? Yeah.
I want to back up a few, please. I want to make a comment here on that one. There was a study done by medical folks that actually proved that children that ride propane and natural gas buses have 50% fewer upper respiratory infections than ones that ride diesel buses. Take that into consideration, okay? That means something for us, if you think about it. Okay, the other thing of it is, the quiet bus drivers can now hear what's going on their buses for the things that they can't see because of the seats. They can now hear those things. I have a friend that drives a diesel bus, and he drove a diesel bus. Now he's driving a Bluebird auto gas. He said it was amazing to him. He thought that his hearing was just going because of old age. No, he could hear stuff that he had never heard before. So there are some significant differences.
And then to piggyback on what Bill said in his presentation with respect to performance, I drove in here in an auto gas powered vehicle. My personal vehicle is on propane auto gas as well. I have 9 vehicles in my fleet that are all on propane, and there's 10 vehicles in the fleet. The other one's diesel, and it's got 350,000 miles on it. Of course, we're not going to do anything with that until we replace it. So a few years back, we had an event in the Cuyahoga Park system, and one of the police officers came over, and I put him behind the wheel of my personal truck. It's a Ford F-150 XLT quad cab, has a cap on it, 4-wheel drive. And he went out just with him and his lieutenant, and they came back, and without being solicited, he said, I cannot believe that there was no hesitation off the line. They will physically jump right off the pavement. And it all has to do with the fact that it's a gaseous fuel when it gets, before. It doesn't work like gasoline or diesel. And the octane rating is such that it's a much better performing fuel. I've been working with propane autogas before autogas was even thought of. 1979, I did conversions for Pargas. And back then, I fell in love with the product. And if I'm someplace where I can't have a propane autogas vehicle, I'm upset. There's a 15-year period I never burned a drop of gasoline. So I'm just saying that most people, and I get this feedback all the time, we've got the autogas now, we love it. We were leery going in, but we can't live without it now. Okay, next slide, please. So who, where, and how? Now, there's three issues when you're talking about adopting autogas. Next slide. You have to think about, and I've been outspoken on the national level about this concept. We're going to adopt propane autogas. Or maybe you don't even know it yet because you haven't thought about it or been approached by it. But there's three things that happen when the process starts. One is, where's the fuel coming from? How am I going to fill it up? And where am I going to get the infrastructure? Okay? So there's a relationship between the folks that provide the vehicles, the Roushes, and their competition, okay? And there's pictures of their icons in your folder. There is the fuel suppliers like the Ferrellgas folks and their competition all over the country. And then there's the infrastructure providers, the folks that build the infrastructure, the dispensing stations, the tanks, the dispensers themselves. So I have always preached that it's wise that maybe not on the first meeting, but certainly by the second or third meeting, you go to the table with all three of them people. You go with Bluebird Bus, you go with Superior Energy Systems, and you go with the propane marketer. That way, as a fleet operator, you get a warm and fuzzy about all the questions you have. Because we're all in this together, none of us are in it alone, and your marketer can't answer the infrastructure questions. Sometimes they can't answer and I'll use the term loosely, carburation questions. So, go to the table with everybody. These are some photographs of dispensing operations around the country. What you have is, there are marketers that while they're working on getting the infrastructure put in place, that basically take a bobtail out delivery truck and do what's called wet fill on the buses in the evening, and then the next day they're all done. And then you have dispensing station. This setup is an 18,000 gallon tank with our dispensers on it. This is a photograph of our portable. We have a design on a portable dispenser, and that is while you're waiting to get the authority having jurisdiction to issue the permit to put in the infrastructure, or you get one of these scenarios where you call up and say, well, I need to put in a dispenser. Okay, engineering, we'll get you a quote on it. We got to determine what your needs are. 3 months. They'll say, well, Mike, the buses are going to be here next week. What do we do now? Bang, portable dispenser. Generator driven, auto gas fueling. Then while the engineering's being done, the plans are being submitted to the local authority having jurisdiction. Everybody gets a warm and fuzzy. The permit gets issued. Oh, now there's snow on the ground. We can't pour concrete. We can't do this. We can't do that. I think there's one here in Cleveland where the portable sat there for 6 months fueling their vehicles. And then when the weather broke, the permanent dispenser went in and the portable came out. Okay? Fueling nozzles. The technology has rapidly evolved with fueling. The original nozzle, the gas guard, was the traditional 1 3/4 Acme connection, threaded connection. It was low emission transfer, a little less than 4 cc's release upon disconnect. The industry has adopted Euro technology. It's my understanding that the ISO standard for that connection, I believe, has probably been balloted on by now. I haven't been in town for a while, but it's been adopted. We send our dispensers out with either or. You make the call, but we recommend the Euro connection because it's a little less than 1 cc release. We refer to it as no emission transfer. And we also recommend, and the industry has come out and said, you really, with that connection, you really don't need personal protective equipment. So, what else we got? Garaging and maintenance. And that's the big issue today, and I think Bill's going to talk about that here in a few minutes, is taking auto gas powered vehicles into your maintenance garage and everything there is to do with that. I'm not going to steal his thunder, but I'm going to tell you, and he'll probably speak to this too because the project is with him. We are in the process of developing awareness pieces, mini training programs, if you will, on parking, garaging, decommissioning of auto gas tanks, purging, all those things specific to the auto gas industry that will help folks know what they need to know when they're maintaining and garaging these vehicles. Those projects are scheduled for release sometime early third quarter of 17. I think that's all I'll say about that. The last thing is the auto gas technician, and he's going to talk about that too, because that's a project we at PERC did with NAFTC, and those classes are going on around the country. Now I know, with PERC funding. Now I can tell you that my intention is to bring one of those classes here to Northern Ohio so that technicians who are working on the fleet vehicles from a number of places here in the greater Cleveland area, if you will, I can name 5 or 6 right off the bat, have the opportunity to send their technicians to this class. And should you think about wanting to be involved in that, I'm your guy. Because I'm the one who's doing the legwork and I'm the one who's pulling for it the most. And I got PERC to say, yes, we can do that. You tell us what you need. So, unless there's any questions, I think that's about it.